raising about the issue of human capital development, especially in connection with education quality. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, education is a great equalizer because without a decent quality education, you don't expect countries to really engage in sustainable development, reduce poverty, and be competitive in global economy. So the quality of education is very, very important. It's human capital. You know, Ethiopia has a very young population. This young population, unless we give them a good education, you have a population, you don't have really capital. Capital is when you invest in your young generation to really lead the country now and in the future. Yeah.
And the other issue you have raised is the linkage between the universities and industries. How the interconnection is realized at the end of the day.
Yeah, true. And one of the challenges for mobility of labor and expertise and academics and professionals between countries in Africa is we don't have a common framework for recognition of qualification. So now Africa is planning to have a kind of regional qualification framework. Ethiopia has endorsed national qualification framework this year, last year, in 2017 Ethiopian calendar. So gradually we'll have a kind of education area in Africa where students can go to other countries without losing their prior education, where actually countries can compare the level of education of their workforce, so facilitating the employment and mobility of labor between countries. Yeah.
To renew our sense of solidarity and advance towards tangible commitment, the ultimate measure of this decade will not be how many reports or how many workshops, but whether Africa by 2034 has built a thriving homegrown knowledge economy where our youth lead in artificial intelligence, green tech, and cultural innovation, where our universities drive industrialization, and where our teachers are celebrated as national builders. This is the Africa we want, and it begins with the choices we make today. I urge each and every member state and partner to sign on beyond nice speeches.
In Africa, over 100 million children cannot read simple texts. What does it mean, madam?
Thank you for the question. What does it mean? It means that at an appropriate age and grade, they are unable to read and write, and that is what we refer to as learning poverty. And that is also what we are trying to address. We know now the problem, what it is, that our children cannot read and write. So we are coming up with initiative to address that problem, to support them, to support the literacy and the numeracy of our learners. During the year of education, we launched a campaign on end of learning poverty for all in Africa. We were targeting 25 member states. 5 have launched so far. So what does that campaign mean? The campaign means that we bring everybody on board, whether it is parents, whether it is traditional leaders, whether it is communities, to support schools in supporting the learners to acquire the basic competencies, to provide the support at home, to provide the learning materials, to meet the school and the government halfway, so that we can really eliminate at some point the learning poverty in Africa.
In your statement now you said financing has to get priority everywhere. And why? Financing education, I mean.
Financing education is important because we cannot deliver the quality education that we want without finances. Finances for what? Finances for infrastructure, for example. We need to have classrooms that are conducive for learning. We need to have teaching materials. We need to support the teachers that are giving the education in the classroom. We also have to prioritize them. It's the same financing we are talking about, because if our teachers are not catered for, they will not be motivated. Therefore, in the whole ecosystem of education financing, it includes teaching and learning resources. It includes infrastructure, whether it is classroom, whether it is electricity, whether it is access to water, whether it is digital, whether it is now teachers' compensation. All that has to do with financing of education, because when the teachers are well motivated, they will be able to deliver the quality of the education that we want. Everyone who is a friend of education, anyone who is friends of education, I believe all of us, we have a role to play to support. This is a collaboration that we are seeking for at any level, at a global level, at a continental level. We want collaboration. Those that will bring, whether it is expertise, whether it is monetary, whether it is anything at national level, the same. At school level, the same. We need collaboration, we need support in whatever kind, whether it is only preparing meals for the student, the school. This is a collaboration we are talking about. Everybody to have the hand in education to make sure that in one way or the other, there is support that is provided. If the child in the class is well fed, somebody has prepared that meal. If the child is accessing a bathroom which is clean, somebody has cleaned that bathroom. If maybe there is no water at the school and the community decide that they will provide maybe a water tank, it means that the children have access to water at the school. It will contribute to them to being active, to being lively, and also to be looking forward to the next day to come to school.
To all our strategic partners and stakeholders for your unwavering support and commitment to Africa education agenda, both for those who were there through the implementation of the Year of Education in 2024 and through the co-creation of concrete and tangible outcomes. African Union Decade of Education and Skills Development 2025-2034 is firmly rooted in collective action, and this initiative is historical. Continental-wide commitment to transform our human capital into a driving force for industrialization, climate resilience, and inclusive growth.
My name is Dr. Abiy from the Center for African Policy Research and Advisory.
Thank you. It has been saying that education is serious in Africa and its quality is not as the continent is expecting. Why?
If you look at education in Africa, one of the first things you would notice is Africans, especially the middle class and the upper class, they migrate out of Africa for education. They travel abroad to the Western countries, to the countries in the Far East for education. And at the end of the day, they are educated with information that cannot lead to the development that we need in Africa. So this is one conversation, this is one part of the conversation that we have not heard enough of. And also another problem with education in Africa is the colonization of our educational systems. Most of our education in Africa, the curriculum comes from outside the country. And eventually you have schools teaching what Africa does not need. And at the end of the day, we have graduates that cannot lead to the development of the African economy.
By 2034, has built a thriving homegrown knowledge economy where our youth lead in artificial intelligence, green tech, and cultural innovation, where our universities drive industrialization, and where our teachers are celebrated as national builders. This is the Africa we want, and it begins with the choices we make today.
They cannot develop Africa. Why? Because they are being miseducated. And this is a major problem with education in Africa. And also you begin to look at the introduction of things like DEI, the diversity, equality, and inclusive policies in education. We don't need them in Africa. You're talking about gender equality in education. You're talking about, there has never been a policy against the education of the girl child in Africa. These DEI policies are coming to subtly begin to introduce the lesbian, gay, transgender movement in our educational systems in Africa. We do not need these things. You begin to look at LGBT curriculums creeping into our African societies, and then we are seeing our African youths, being led astray through education. these are problems to the educational society, and that's why we are calling on more civil society organizations to rise up to speak about the educational system. We're also calling on the government to commence decolonizing their curriculum, to begin proper research into what is required to develop Africa, and that's what we need. We don't need to discuss. From the conversations I'm hearing talking about plans for 2044, 2063, many of the people in the auditorium by this time will no longer be alive.
The African Union Decade of Education and Skills Development from Vision into Reality. We are discussing here to secure the future of Africa as a self-determined, knowledge-powered civilization. The African Union Decade of Education and Skills Development is Africa's strategic response to global competition, demographic urgency, and the imperative of scientific sovereignty. And without a skilled, innovative, and literate youth, Agenda 2063 remains a dream. But when we train them, it becomes our collective destiny as African.
We're talking about education of today. What can we do? What minerals are in our country? What kind of educational system can we have to take the best advantage of our minerals, add value to our minerals before exporting it? These are the kind of educational programs that we need in Africa at this time, not just talking about the problems or talking about global education, which we don't need in Africa. Africa needs her own unique kind of education, and that's why organizations like the Inner City Missions for Children in Nigeria, they are currently working on new educational curriculum to lead to the development of young people in Africa. And they have built about 19 free schools across the world.
I wish to reaffirm our highest level commitment to this shared journey. We do not seek ad hoc coordination. We seek a genuine transformative partnership to take the decade of education to a success. I look forward to fruitful deliberations and to the transformative commitment that will help us forge it today.
Mostly in Africa, just 3 are not in Africa, but most of them are in Africa. And they feed the children every day, morning and afternoon. They feed them twice a day. They give them free school inputs, free uniforms, free school. The children go through the whole basic education process without spending a dime. And this is solely funded from within Africa. This is Africa's, this is one of the biggest education financing models that Africa can actually imbibe by studying how did organizations like the Inner City Missions get it right.
By 2035, Africa will add more young people to the global workforce than the rest of the world combined. This demographic reality must be harnessed with purpose. Numbers alone will not deliver prosperity. That's why we are investing in maternal and child health, expanding early childhood education, and scaling school feeding programs. Every child must arrive at school nourished, ready to learn, and prepare to contribute. By 2063, Africa will be defined by what we secure, what we sustain, and what we share. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our moment, and this is our responsibility.
In Ethiopia, particularly in Oromia, there are schools called Ifaboru schools, and there are boarding schools as well, investing on the early stage. What do you think about the contribution of these investments on ensuring the quality education at national level, even at continental level?
Yeah, education, it has, education is something you have to do end to end. You cannot just, improve education by only focusing on higher education or in the middle levels, but you should start from preschool. You should do also try to invest in school and also in higher education, even post-higher education. That means the recent effort by government in general, but also Oromia in particular, especially on preschool age education, what we call a foundational years and education, is a big development for the country. Previously, preschool education is optional, but now it became mandatory. So every kid would go to this preschool education, that giving them a good foundation to really be successful in subsequent elementary, high school, in university, and later. So it's a big development. It just began a few years ago, so it's really improving from year to year. It's one of the, I would say, flagship initiative in education sector of Ethiopia and in Oromia as well. We're going to see the impact of that important decision in years to come.
While we celebrate the significant achievement realized during the African Years of Education 2024, we must confront the stark reality highlighted in the latest State of Education in Africa report. The evidence is that approximately 4 in 5 children age of 10 in Africa cannot read and comprehend a simple text. This learning poverty, exacerbated by rapid population growth and inadequate financing, is a real crisis that cannot be solved by external partners. It demands unwavering political will from each and every African country, and we must move beyond fragmented pilot project and donor-driven agenda.
What should be the role of women?
I think study has it that women leadership is vital, especially in school, because they don't only provide the leadership within the school, but they also provide the motherly care. Yes, they are more. They are good listener. They are good carer. And I believe their schools are always well managed. I think the study has that, research has that school principals that are of females, the discipline is very high, the performance is also very high, and there is always a very good interpersonal relationship. And I think it is important also for women to advance into this leadership. Those that have merits, and then I know that a lot of women, they are taking up this leadership role, they are challenging this leadership role. So it is the time.
The decade belongs to Africa, and its success will be measured by how our member states domesticate the CESA, allocate at least 20% of national budget for education, and hold themselves accountable through African Union instruments and SDG scorecards.
How can the children, the upcoming generation, use the technology where the reading is even problem?
First of all, I would say that we need to manage our use of technology. I do not think that the African child should be exposed to AI at an early stage. I would give reasons. Right now, you have many people with bad handwritings. They can't write well because they type more than they write. So technology has its advantages and its disadvantages. Even the AIs, if children would stop thinking critically and asking AI for all the answers, how would they develop their minds? So we should add moderation and manage how we expose our children to AI tools. We can use it in structured programs that can lead to sectoral development, but has intrinsic development of the African child. I don't think AI should be at the fore. Then secondly, how do we solve the reading problems in Africa? I'll say it's very easily. Let us have more learning centers.
To renew our sense of solidarity and advance towards tangible commitment, the ultimate measure of this decade will not be how many reports or how many workshops, but whether Africa by 2034 has built a thriving homegrown knowledge economy where our youth lead in artificial intelligence, green tech, and cultural innovation, where our universities drive industrialization, and where our teachers are celebrated as national builders. This is the Africa we want, and it begins with the choices we make today. I urge each and every member state and partner to sign on beyond nice speeches, but with budget, policies, and unwavering commitment.
I will talk about the Inner City Missions for Children. That organization has over 5,000 learning centers in rural communities all across Africa. I personally, I supervised the launch of one of their learning centers in a remote town in Bintiri, where you had a lot of adults who had never read before. And you see, you have learning centers. This is in Ghana, by the way. You have learning centers. So when you have more formally structured learning centers, but socially structured learning centers, you can have learning centers in different communities and all. It will begin to expose the African individuals to education and, of course, learning to read and write, the basics. So having more learning centers in rural communities, having more schools like the Inner City Missions is doing, is one of the very important things that needs to be done.
The next 10 years must be a decade of accelerated education. Education and skills development are the indispensable foundation for sustainable socioeconomic growth, peace, and security. And to capitalize on our demographic dividend, we must equip our youth, our most significant asset, with the foundational and the future-ready skills required for the 21st century, embracing digital innovation, artificial intelligence, and the green economy.